That's why I'm in government, because I'm always optimistic. Never mind.
Don't get rid of that.
So the things on my agenda is going computer dive. Obviously, we need to look at the meeting minutes for those. There we go. Sorry.
Just to let you know on that subject, you will not have a quorum at approximately 5 to 8.
You gotta leave.
I have to leave.
Okay, that's fine.
So, well, 2 minutes, we gotta do that.
Yep, let's do that first.
Sorry. Words always. Because I'm people so screaming face.
He does not look pleased. He doesn't.
This was actually the only time he cried the whole time. Just this one time, which is why I like this picture so much. He's having a great time all the other times. Just laughing and giggling and touching stuff and smelling things.
It's hard to tell if he's crying or if that's the face he makes when you take pictures. Because as soon as you say smile, they make the strangest faces ever.
No, he was definitely not happy to be there.
Did everyone have a chance to review the minutes?
Yes.
Yeah. Any?
I didn't see any. I didn't have any questions. I had no problem with that.
Hey, I always put a couple of mistakes in there. That's what we used to do for the board. Yeah. They wouldn't do something otherwise. Well, I mean, one guy just loved pointing out mistakes, so we'd always just put a couple typos in there just to get something to do. Made them real happy.
Consider it. I'll be honest, I did not have a chance to read them.
Those are not my people. We insert.
I think you did such a good job that I feel comfortable bossing them sometimes.
Because you guys do such a good job of reading them,
You tried to.
I don't spend as much time looking over them because you always catch my mistakes. So I might give you a feedback.
Alright, so we are live,
Live,
official, it's the audio. The audio, let's go around to, you guys. Evan, Linda, Shelley, Nina, Brian, myself, Sarai, and Jen. That's the same name. First order of business is to approve the meetings from last week. So, yeah, I don't want to take some more.
Oh, that's right.
I made perfect.
I moved to approve the minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain, I will abstain, I have not had a chance to read them. All right. So approved. All right, so this is obviously a limited group this evening. My main goals for us are to talk through some of the feedback we got from the meeting Saturday. Also, we have the feedback from the surveys to read through. See what people think. So anyone have anything else that they want to accomplish this evening?
Yes,
What?
I'd like to process and tease out some of the things that we have heard recently from the people that we've turned to for some suggestions and guidance and to share their experiences. The manager from OVAS said quite a number of things that I think could be helpful to us in terms of guidance around some of the steps that we'll take going forward to do our best to see this through to the end and hopefully successfully. I'm not moved to do it 3 times like they did. I'm sure you're not either. I thought some of the things that people said and so formally in the meeting and on Saturday and informally in conversation afterwards could be useful in terms of helping us with our business. And I'd like to tease that out too.
Okay. So which one of those 3 do we want to start with? Feedback that we've got from people here in the broad, feedback from reading, and feedback from this.
I think we should do the formal stuff, especially since you put so much effort into it.
I'm interested in seeing.
Me too.
the questions.
I'm looking at it now.
Well, if we want to Give me the.
You got
Then throw it up here.
it. One of the best parts of the year, right?
I'm just gonna sit and watch, because that seems more entertaining right now.
Increase size.
I mean,
Hey, come on in, come on in. Welcome, Deb. You're gonna sit right here. My jacket is not in this chair. Sure, I'm sure.
Hello, guy. A teeny bit smaller, so maybe see like 2 or 3 columns at a time.
Well, I was gonna go one column at a time, right?
There.
That's good.
Any smaller.
Yeah, they are.
So,
So this is the feedback from the survey set.
Okay.
oh. What did it just do? Why?
We went sideways.
That's still a. I don't know what I was trying to do.
There you go.
Okay, so question 1. Oh, I see what's wrong here. Well, the way I did it, we can only see that one.
Oh, and you were trying to pull down and bring up all the answers.
No. This thing here is huge. So how do I hide the ribbon?
Usually pen.
Reading view?
Yeah.
That's accomplished what I wanted to do. Okay, so are the roles and responsibilities of village employees clearly defined? So this is not any particular order, nor is it identify any of the individuals, right? So we might be able to tease out from their answers who they are, but
It's not really up.
Not really.
Yes.
yeah, no. What I'm trying to say is we don't know. We can make guesses. All right, so first one, beginning with it's been 10 years since I was on council, so the answers I give are based on my experience from that time. There weren't years ago, and I doubt they are now. Okay, next up. Yeah. It depends on the employee. Some are. Those are generally ones that have a clear purpose, i.e. fiscal and police are pretty clear because those functions of government tend to be straightforward and clear. Roles that may be more strategic may not be as clear. No response there, no response there. Some of these, one person had trouble submitting and submitted 5 times and filled in, had different cells filled in
Each time?
So we got all the answers,
Wow.
but it took 5 times. I think they had some formatting things that choked the thing. Okay, so I believe that there are job descriptions for many of the positions for staff members. I do not believe that the information is readily available to the public. They would have been an attachment to a resolution or ordinance, and as we have heard, attachments never got posted to the village website. Next, it's possible they are. If so, it's not apparent. As best I can tell, job descriptions are scant and poorly maintained. Major, read newer or more costly positions, such as chief of police, fiscal officer, or village planner, have more detailed or recent job descriptions, but a regular revision process is not in place, nor are these items easy to locate. Overall, I would say the roles and responsibilities of village employees are clearly defined, but there have been, at times, questions raised as to who should be responsible for certain facilities or projects. I would expect there is clearly written job descriptions available, but I have not seen them, and if not available, then there should be for each job within the village, from mayor to groundskeeper. And test. Okay. So that is, so we want to pause. And,
How many people responded? And did we get any mail feedback?
I believe there are 5.
Pam got one mailed to her. She said it'd probably be easier for us to just look at it online, so she submitted it.
Yeah.
I see.
So there are there are 11 entries, and 5 of them were one person. And 2 of them are test submissions, so that's 9 minus 4, which gives us 5 actual submissions.
Wow. That's a terrible response.
How many did you actually deliver? Like, what was the final count?
Even if it was 20, that's 25%.
So. How many council members do we have now?
6.
Okay. Seven, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I think I'm missing people, so I'm gonna say roughly 15 to 16.
So let's say 15, just to keep that simple, that's a third.
That's not bad.
In actual surveying, a third is,
Actually, not too bad.
yeah, is certainly statistically representative. So do we want to talk about these answers, or do we want to just move on to the next one and get a general feel for all of this? How do we want
Let's talk about this one.
Yeah, I think we should do this, we go along.
So it sounds pretty much like everyone's saying either no, or maybe that I haven't seen them. And there's sort of an overall trend of confusion and negative response.
Yeah.
That's the
I agree. I think that my takeaway from this is that either there aren't clear responsibility, it's certainly not, it doesn't seem like it's written down, and if it is, nobody's read it.
I find it interesting that, yeah, none of these people have ever seen a job description.
Think of all the places that we've worked among us as a group. Government or for-profit. It's common in well-managed administration for there to be not just very detailed, consistent, formatted job descriptions, but an administrative function, usually of HR, but whoever is the administrator, at least every 2 years to review it and update it as things change. There's an administrative element missing here. People who are among our legislative body are telling us that there's an administrative function that's missing. It doesn't sound like it's been assigned to anybody or anybody's embraced it as a responsibility. So not only is it missing, but it's not easily accessible electronically in a folder that says position description or in a paper folder. There's no historical record of this. It always has a date on it. So it seems to me that what's telling on these answers, the absence, but B, what we are hearing is there's a process missing that even people who are in positions of authority don't have access to, and that's something that we could address.
Well, we can certainly make it a provision of the charter that requires any hired person to have a job description on file, right?
And provide it when you get the job.
And set a review period.
Yes.
So our function of employees, right? I believe, if I'm not mistaken, employees are covered by ERS.
Yeah, overs.
I really don't think you're allowed to be covered by OPERS unless you are in a job classification. So I will assume there will be a PCN somewhere with a classification number and a job description. So that, because I really kind of doubt you're allowed to distribute the ERS without any job description. It's not in the state system. So that's probably job descriptions out
But having worked in there, the job description can be very vague.
It might, there is probably a job description somewhere.
So somewhere in some governmental.
Some civil service vaguely described
I
job.
think that what it is, it's not defined. If it is defined at all, it's not readily available. That's kind of the takeaway, and there you go.
Yes.
So here's what I'm insist with that, right? Because having been on council, right, and we don't actually have a ton of employees, right? So we have Becky and we have Leah, and their job descriptions are probably in many people's minds, oh, one, she's the clerk. She does the clerky things. And the other one's the clerk of court, she does the court of court. And that's the sum total of the job description.
Well, it doesn't really matter for our purposes.
No, yeah,
We know
no.
what description is. So
Yes.
rather than go down into the weeds, let's do question number 2.
Okay. Are the responsibilities of the mayor clearly defined? They weren't years ago, and I doubt they are now.
There's our optimist.
I'm about 100% sure I know who that responds.
That's not good.
Statutorily, yes, the mayor is the executive function of the village. The mayor has the day-to-day operations of the village. It seems in my experience, the greatness of this area depends on what a citizen or council member thinks that should be considered.
It's every response from every person.
Right, and we don't have names,
And we don't
so
want to know that we can ask them.
we should just take it as data. Or because then otherwise you can say, oh, Larry's a blowhard, right? You don't need to consider Larry's information. There are no Larrys in this, right? So, okay. Experience the greatness of this area depends on what a citizen or council member consider an administrative authority. My experience is that most things are administrative and should be mayoral responsibility. We got some things here. Okay, by ORC, but not very available to the public. I think she is the chief executive officer of the village and does not delegate well. She prefers to be responsible for most of village affairs. Not really, or at least not enough to curtail the regular squabbling about what the mayor should not do, and who directs the mayor's efforts. State statute is vague. I believe the current mayor does what the mayor wants to do within the law, but then the current mayor is the only one I can say I'm familiar with, since as the previous mayor was only in office a few months after moving here. And that's the answer.
What was the third one again? I'm so sorry.
That's the third one. Statutorily, yes. No, it's, oh, yeah, sorry. Sorry, I don't know how to count. You're right. That was the ORC. Current mayor does what the mayor wants.
Okay, so that's the key, not the response. So overall, I think that, again, it's negative. It's not clearly defined in or not readily available, but it is defined somewhere. I think most people agree that it's defined by statute, but defined by statute realize it's very well part.
Well, I
So,
think we
very
know,
well.
I think we know even by statute, it's not that clearly defined, because the statute says, these are duties that can be shared amongst council and mayor. So those lines need to be, I think, for the peace of many, need to be clearly drawn.
And that is one of the major paragraphs in every charter I read.
Oh, absolutely.
So
Okay, moving on to number 3. This person sure likes that. Are the responsibilities of a village council member clearly defined? And they weren't years ago, and I doubt they are now. And then, next up, statutorily, yes. The council member is the legislative making body. Council passes a budget that appropriates funds. Council authorizes the mayor to enter into contracts. Council does not manage employees or administer contracts once approved. The grayness occurs, in my experience, when a council member thinks they should have more administrative authority than we do. Here we go. The committee duties seem to be defined. I believe there are expectations of what council members do. Attend meetings, review minutes, be informed, Not sure that type of thing is fine. And then, are you copying? Are you copying?
I'm not, I'm paraphrasing.
Okay. Ready for the last one? Paraphrase it, this is long. Not particularly. As regards the legislative role, it's pretty clear. Council votes on legislation. As for committee responsibilities, it's less straightforward. Does the committee chair oversee projects on a day-to-day basis, sewer, street repairs, running the pool, etc.? Or does that fall to the mayor administrative staff? The mayor signs contracts and mayor administrative staff are the primary and consistent points of contact. So does that leave the committee chair in an advisory role only? This lack of clarity leads to the cycle of blame and poor accountability we've seen in recent years. I believe the responsibilities of the village council members are clearly defined. Yeah.
Somebody bucking the system.
So that's funny, because we definitely got the range,
Right,
which probably means that it can't be clearly defined, right? Because if I think it's clearly defined and he thinks it's a crapshoot, it must be somewhere in the middle.
I would try to change that.
We can clearly define those things.
What would you define?
What would you define? Well,
I don't know that the parents meeting, we're not ready for that right now.
Well, there's a project manager, where I stand.
So that's great, that is right, I do care, just for the purposes of this. We don't have to fight right now.
Take it off. I don't.
Okay.
I'm offended before.
Come on,
I'm sorry.
Okay, number 4. Does the village council and the mayor communicate effectively? Oh, no, and I believe the ideas of council and residents are many times not taken seriously by the mayor. No, but not always for lack of effort. It doesn't seem that people read emails all the way, or they read one tone into emails that don't exist. There's definite room for improvement, though I'm not sure policies or resolutions can improve them. That's personality and an effort on those involved. Mayor to council members, yes, more or less, however, since the mayor isn't fond of delegating, the communication is mostly giving information about council meetings. Council members to council members, within committees, there is good communication. Across committees, at work session meetings, there is good communication. Okay? Effectively isn't exactly the word I choose, and it depends on the council member. My experience is with only one mayor, but I've seen a good number of council members come and go. At times, there's been fruitful and productive communication between the mayor and various members of council. I've also seen exactly the opposite, with hostility, duplicity, and stonewalling from both parties. Overall, I believe the village council and mayor communicate effectively for 85% of the village business. It is that other 15% where problems come about when the mayor and council are not in agreement, but then that is politics. Stop my reading. Okay. I think that's it. Yeah. Okay.
So, got 3 no's and 2 myths.
Yeah, but I think what we also got that is that it's largely personality driven,
Yeah.
right? So the thing to think about is how can we structurally remove that personality
Well,
issues from communication?
okay, so there was really only one person who specifically said personalities. The other people said that there was, good communication and bad communication depending on committees. And that is a different thing to me than personalities, because that is another thing that it would be better if it were defined. I don't know that that's, I don't know if committees and the communication of committees is something that a charter wants to address, but that's the other takeaway I got from those responses.
Well, so I kind of wonder if the communication can be improved just by better defining, duties of council versus duties of the mayor,
Absolutely.
Because it sounds like, kind of reading across all four of them together now, that the communication is in part because there's not clear definition of what people need to do.
I think that's reasonable. Other thoughts on number 4? Stick, you have your hand raised.
Well, I haven't seen part of this, but the delegation issue to me seems to be maybe one of the root causes of a lot of the problems. If you don't delegate, that leaves one person with all the responsibility, and either they're too busy or overloaded, or they don't make decisions that are in the best interest of the village. So, I don't
think we're
know,
coming back
if you
to-
defined
Yeah.
the jobs and gave responsibilities to the committees so that they had some teeth to operate, and established expectations that they would do their job and do it based on timely completion.
There it is, expectation.
Yeah,
There's a tone of expectation. In social services, let's give children's services an example. If you call in a report, make an observation around neglect or abuse, there are very clear expectations. You have 72 hours, the children's services does, to investigate that and respond. It's perfectly clear. And if they don't do that, there's accountability for that. I think it sounds to me like people informally choose their own style of communication about how they do things. Some people send all emails for everything. Some people they don't want anything in writing. They only want to have an offhand conversation, or they put things on a sticky note. It doesn't sound to me like there's a clear sense of the way you're expected to behave and what's expected in terms of communication. I'm sure some of you have gone to Columbus City Council meetings. You think all the people get along? They behave very well in those meetings. They know what's expected of them. And they go prepared, and it's a business meeting. And we've all, some of you have gone to this, I'm sure you have, and you've seen how it operates. And your personality is not prominent in terms of communication. It might be in terms of leadership in some of the small meetings, or some of the committee meetings that you do, but in the meeting itself, to get the business of the city done, that's an aside. You have to behave as a leader in that environment, and I just think that this has been a small place for a long time, too informal. Everybody gets to decide for themselves. That's what that feels like to me. And almost every answer is sort of connected to that. People do what they sort of feel like doing because there's not a tenor or a tone.
They should be wearing ties.
Hello?
And I was gonna say,
Bolero?
I'd like to, I didn't have time, I'll tell you later off camera what my week's been like, but I did not have time to respond. But I'd like to make some general observations. One, when I was on council, and it's been, I don't know, 15 years at least, so I didn't feel comfortable addressing the questions as they were phrased because I really just don't remember. Okay, but I do remember that half of the council worked very well and the other half attended meetings. Okay, and that I see a nodding of the head, that may have been true recently. So when we're doing our work on the charter, you've got to recognize that we have basically an unpaid volunteer council with various skills or lack thereof, and maybe some are not as motivated as others. So that's a problem if you do delegate and then they don't perform. So that's another problem. My other observation was that we had no long-term planning for for large expenses,
Right.
like streets, like sewers. Since the responsibilities weren't delegated very much, a lot didn't get done. And a good example is, we've known in the buildings that we have a sanitary sewer issue, and we've known it for 10 years, and we're just now getting around to addressing it. That speaks about whatever you want to say it speaks about. But I found it disconcerting that you didn't have delegation of responsibility, and you didn't have any really good long-term planning or financing to back it up. Okay. Now, we do have sewer funds that are allocated for certain things, and we have some other funds, the stuff that comes from MI now is restricted.
The hookups are restricted.
So that's a restricted fund.
Yeah, the tap and fee, right?
Now, the reason I left, I was on council, I think, for 2 terms. I left because I became president of the Northland Community Council, and I really felt that I had more ability to affect Minerva Park in that role, because this was back when everybody was zoning everything in the world. And for 20 years, I handled all the zoning for Northland. So as president, I felt I could do more for Minerva Park than being on council. And that also speaks to maybe the lack of delegation. So thank you for listening.
I also wonder, Dick, I wonder about this. Do you feel like it would be any different if council members were paid more?
I'm going to pause, let me think about that. 'Cause we're
Okay,
only on question
please.
5, and we have a total of 21 and 2 other agenda items.
Thank you for letting me diverge.
Let me know, just
I got stopped, you're gonna get stopped.
Very well taken, though. Instead of not giving anything, we should verbalize it.
It is.
Yeah, very helpful. Can I ask you a question about his prior experience? It's still on topic. I'm telling you it is. Do you recall if the budget included a line item that was known as depreciation?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, I worked for a number, I had myself a $4 million budget once when I was working, and we had to have a depreciation line. And it got figured out what it was, and monthly, you had to predict out how much you needed to keep putting in that, so when something broke or wore out, you had the money. And I just wondered if we did that.
I believe that we do concerning certain things. For instance, concerning police vehicles, concerning fire vehicles. It is specific to that.
Like safety is a major priority.
That's correct.
But what about the building? This is the
No,
building.
I don't believe there's ever been
Okay,
a
I'll stop.
depreciation line for the building.
And there's been no maintenance other than normal maintenance for the building.
For emergency maintenance.
Yeah.
Number 5.
Number 5, first one is,
Are the processes for addressing, completing the work of the village committees efficient and effective? If yes, what helps the process work? If no, what roadblocks do you encounter? Answer 1, no. Yeah, so the committee I am most involved with seems to function effectively, though that can be biased. What helps is willingness of not only the committee to listen to each other and keep on top of it as much as possible.
I feel like there was supposed to be a second half to
There
that.
was, but
It's okay. We all have fun.
Okay, next up. Because it should have been not only this, but that, right? That's
You're right.
how that instruction goes. Okay, I don't think the mayor informs council members honestly about what is going on. More and more, I think more, the mayor is telling individual groups what she wants them to hear. If she hasn't made progress on a project, she will say we are working on that, rather than I haven't done much on that. There's rarely good solid details in communication about projects. There is never updating communications by the mayor on what her action steps were and what has done and what was done and was still to be done. And what was still to be done, I guess.
I'm gonna pause on that one, is that, just going back to the
I don't
question.
think that actually specifically.
Okay.
I don't think it was a direct reply, however, this person did number it number 5. So I believe this is the question that they were answering. I just think they,
Okay, that's fine, I just want to make sure it wasn't just me.
zip says that. Again, this varies depending on council member. Committee members have leeway in certain respects. Example, they can establish standing meetings, they can set the agendas for committee meetings, they can invite speakers and so on. There is no good mechanism, however, for addressing council members who fall short in performing their committee duties.
That would be a council.
Mhm. When I was on council, I found it often difficult to complete work within a committee as the mayor would sit in on all committee meetings, often disagreeing with the consensus of the committee members. The job of a committee is to relieve the mayor of having to do the due diligence in resolving a situation or drafting legislation, then reporting the committee information back to the mayor in a formal meeting. Having the mayor as part of every committee defeats the purpose of having the committee separate from the executive branch. Maybe this is a personal belief, but I found it annoying when on council.
And it kind of speaks to the delegation,
And we
no
asked
real
for-
delegation.
But I would say delegation, the council is supposed to enact laws, and ordinances. And the mayor is there as an executive function to, if there's a veto vote or, so they're not supposed to draft, the mayor is not supposed to draft the legislation.
No, but you know, that person was also speaking specifically about committees, that last person was. And,
Well,
If you're on a council and you have a committee, why do you invite the mayor?
they don't.
they never,
That's the
they don't
point.
invite them.
That's the point.
It's a public meeting and she can come if she wants.
That was their thing.
Or he, whoever it is, they're,
I think that's their saying, that's the roadblock.
but it's a roadblock because they don't take their function of enacting legislation or an ordinance to tell, well, you're allowed to have anybody there if it's a comment.
So not necessarily, right? So here, let's try to make a hypothetical, right? So you have a committee who's, I don't know, I was on the services committee. One of my jobs was to put the trash bin together, get it out, right? Well, so if, when those responses come in, right, and my committee is supposed to choose the bid, from the however many responses we got, we review them and make that decision. If the mayor is in that process and putting their hand on the scale, right, and influencing the committee, then that doesn't let the committee do what it needs to do, come back, make a decision, and make a recommendation. That is one way that the mayor could interfere in the committee and impact its effectiveness.
The mayor signs contracts, so mayor and clerk sign the contracts on behalf of the village, so therefore.
Well, right, but the council passes the legislation, so if the mayor puts their hand on the tape, on the scale, and leads everybody to one bid, right, even though there might be 3, and they say, but,
Isn't it competitive bidding? I would hope that we are doing it in accordance with the law.
right, but the bottom line competitive bidding is its lowest and best,
And
right? And so it's that and best that allows you to say, well, vendor A, we had personal experience with, they don't communicate well, and, their drivers are stinky. And, even though they're the cheapest, and, bidder B, they might be more money, but their drivers smell nice, and they communicate really well, and we don't know anything about them. So, right, and that's something that a mayor could influence that.
or just refuse to sign the contract.
Well,
I don't think that's where we're at in that discussion, but they could also do that too, I guess.
All right, so that one seems to as well, but my opinion is it ties back to understanding who does what, the expectation of who does what.
But the real work of a lot of the council committees is, I agree with what you said about legislation, is not directly related to legislation.
No, it's not. It's basically fact-finding, putting things together for people to make a determination on. And kind of pushed out further from this is another thing I want to say about the way in which the mayor could influence a committee. And this is something that I have seen myself, is one of the problems, in my opinion, is that committees have no teeth at all in the village. If you sit in a committee meeting and mayor is there, what you may hear is something along the lines of, and this is just an example, the committee may say, we need information on X, Y, and Z. And the mayor will say, I have that information. And then that information is never seen, never produced, there's never follow-up, and the issue becomes clouded and difficult to deal with for the committee.
I love you finish that. So that wasn't my experience. However, I had a follow-up thought that just gurgled away. Give me 1 second. Never mind. Move on. I mean, number 6. Yeah, it comes back. Okay. Are the processes for decision making? Oh, I remember exactly what it was. So, I will disagree with Jen that committees don't have teeth. Committees have all the teeth that they choose to take.
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
Right?
that's.
And so, because the way it is theoretically designed is that a committee goes and deliberates on something and comes back to council to make a recommendation. And then the council will, turn that into legislation or resolution or ordinance and then vote on that as a body. But what will happen is, because committees choose not to have those teeth or pretend not to have those teeth or don't have enough direction or confidence to bear those teeth, they are wishy-washy. They're not getting things done. And then the mayor then will feel like they have to come in and push to get things done. That is another way.
I stand corrected, and even though I have seen exactly what I described, I think that that's a much better way to put it. I think that's a more accurate way to put it.
All right, so now number 6. Are the processes for decision-making concerning village finances efficient and effective? If yes, what helps the process work well? If no, what roadblocks do you encounter? Number 1, don't know, but it seems like every decision comes down to what the mayor wants. No reason for expenditures for 4 cruisers or money spent for a village planner, to name a few things, including official salaries. All right, number 2, I like that this process has started to move much more through committee and is a year-long process instead of fiscal and mayor just presenting a budget and council approving it without understanding what is going on. That is only as good as the chair. This doesn't feel like this is correlating back to the question. So processes for finance, village finance is efficient and effective.
Yeah, I don't think that's.
This is the same person who had the answer.
This may be the previous.
Yeah, but this is,
Number 6.
but they have it numbered 6, so I don't understand because they put that number in there.
Okay, let's read it.
All right. That is only as good as the chair of each committee. There is no.
You know what, you're right, because if you look at number 7, it talks about the finance. and-
Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
Oh, yeah.
the previous question was about committees, so the person numbered their own questions wrong. Yeah.
Should we just?
Yeah.
Paste them down?
It happens.
I mean, it wasn't.
So that needs to go to the left.
Yeah, so I can do like this.
Push number 1.
Oh, look at you. You're a problem solver. If
You
I
in your
can.
current format, but you could hit the alt button, I think. Alt button. You know, let's just read them.
Yeah,
They're not
let's
like-
read
yeah.
them in the order that we think they're probably meant to be.
All right, so here, so now we're in 7 for this one. Here, I can just do that. Oh, read only.
I just,
I'm gonna click that, thank you. Okay,
now you can leave it on,
no, maybe.
because you're ahead.
Delete cell and shift left.
All the work council.
There is not.
Let's go back and put this back into reading view, so we have a little more real estate, and then you can move on. Thank you for your patience. Okay, so here. Oh, so let's go back and consider this person's committee answers.
Which was to 6, which was, what, 6 about?
This was about committees.
Okay.
Yeah, that was actually answered, should actually be 5, but, you know, moving forward.
Whatever.
Okay,
So
that
question
is,
5 was, are the processes for addressing and completing work with motion committees?
as only as good as the chair of each committee, there is no expectation of good minutes of committee meetings, no expectation of action steps and reporting on action steps. There is no real training on how to be a good committee chair. Strategic planning within a committee is not encouraged, although there were chair-led strategic planning initiatives at times, but it depends on the chair. Chairs can flat out refuse to do something, or they clean up by the community chair, and so the work is not completed. Legislation has good process because deliverables were well-defined, get the resolution written and ready to present. Since the mayor does not delegate tasks, only what the rules say committees may do, there isn't a real process for addressing and completing projects and having council help with tasks. I think that says very much like what we were just saying, right? That it's, depends a lot on the chair of the committee. Okay, so now this is back to finance decision processes. Most financial budget decisions are made by the financial director, and that is as good as the financial director at the time. And most of those decisions are based on what has been done in the past. The mayor will know about big projects and new financing. The process of creating the budget is done by department heads and the finance director. I do not believe that I have ever witnessed the mayor working directly and closely with committee chairs to be visionary and anticipate financial needs. The mayor and council have been reactionary and not necessarily proactive in decision-making. Department heads such as police chief have been visionary and proactive in planning and asking for a budget to support the plans. There have been a couple times when the council did strategic planning, but it was not initiated by the mayor. It was supported by the mayor, but again, the mayor is not necessarily proactive.
Which is kind of what I'm trying to say about planning.
Yeah. So,
Long-term planning doesn't exist.
I think part of what they're saying is that there is no mandate for council to do any planning, right? So whatever planning has happened in the past has typically been from department heads. So our police chief has been known to plan. Our fiscal officer who has big projects on their horizon plans, but council has no.
And I would guess if they were here, he'd say,
I would imagine that he has lots of plans, yes, of all various natures.
So did we get 5 minutes?
No.
Okay.
2 more.
just one quick thing. Have you experienced other villages or communities that support the strategic plan? Yes. I have. Yeah. Northern County, do people typically have a strategic plan?
Yeah.
5-year, 10-year plan?
Yes.
Yeah, and we don't have one. Is that correct? I don't think we do.
No.
No.
I think there's one cool.
And I think that exists beyond that. Now, yes, that is largely the strength of the fiscal officer and the expertise of the individual brings to that position. We have effective forecasting and well-guided appropriations planning. Roadblocks have been related to particular individuals. See it in here? Where information was inadequate or poorly researched. Occasionally, there are disputes related to spending money or entering into contracts, despite those items having been appropriated. There needs to be clear and consistent statements regarding dollar amounts that require council approval versus what the administration can spend independently. There is a tendency, irresistible at times, for council to nickel and dime which really can hinder accomplishing the most basic tasks. When I was on council, I found it difficult to get a real handle on village finances due to the bookkeeping techniques and software that were used at the time. Hopefully this has changed. As an example, the swimming pool revenue and expenses were not carried in the same accounting category. In other words, swimming pool revenue was income to the village, but many of the expenses of operating the pool, such as electricity, chemicals, lawn care, pump maintenance, were not shown against pool income. So it gave the appearance that the pool was a great money generator for the village. While the truth was far from that. The village was supplementing the pool since those other expenses were being shown in the village's overall operating expense. This happened in other areas as well, which led to the debate of what was it really costing the village to operate. As I recall, the mayor's court and EMS and fire were other areas that were confusing in the same way. I can tell you that that's not how the accounting happens anymore. It is.
You say that's not true now?
It's not true now. It's not true now.
Okay.
Who's that fiscal officer?
Can't hold you. She's really good.
Yeah, and the law lays out so many things for the fiscal officer.
Yes.
I mean,
And the
And
previous
she
guy
knows what they are, and she's a.
Thankfully, she's really good at her job.
the previous guy was, I thought, pretty good at his job too. I didn't like him personally, but I thought he was pretty good at his job. Jeff, we'll check.
Yeah, yeah.
So would we say in summary that these sound like 2 no's, a yes, and a mixed on this one? So would we all agree this ties back to, again, a lot of the success is resulting from a person or a personality versus a process?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of just.
Yes.
Okay, 7. Are the responsibilities of the finance director clearly defined? Number 1, don't know. By statute, yes, there is a job description that was created when, I guess we're gonna do that.